probably make a start. I'm sure a few people are wondering as we go, but I'm Emma Burdett, the founder of Wild. Wild is a diversity business, and it's my pleasure to welcome the panel today to discuss the relevance and importance of diversity and inclusion. So give them a round of applause. Great. So I'm going to call diversity and inclusion D&I just for ease, but D&I is a very prevalent topic right now. Gender equality is just one part of diversity and inclusion. We're here today to shed a bit more light about a topic which is extremely complex, quite ambiguous, and also quite sensitive. So I'm joined by 4 amazing people who I know pretty well from the industry. So I want to make a start and really find out about the first question. So how does the business that you work for embrace D&I? Now I'm going to ask Tim, because I know that Gensler just won an award for diversity and inclusion. So how do Gensler embrace D&I?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Emma, for inviting us to a great panel. Look, I think with Gensler, it's just ingrained in our culture. Even since our founder, Art Gensler, when he started the business, it was never anything about exclusion. It was always, this is just the way we do things. We just include people. And, you know, our current model, we've got a co-CEO model globally, 1 male, 1 female. Our firm of 6,000 people is 53% female, the remaining male. And it's just part of our culture. It's just part of ingrained. And I think it's, you know, we've really engaged D&I particularly. Globally, we have some great initiatives. 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we came up with the D&I strategy. There was 5 sort of key strategies that we really focus on as Gensler, and that's, you know, increasing the diversity inside Gensler. Obviously, as a global architecture and design firm, we're really focusing on how we can change spaces and places to make sure that addresses regional and global D&I initiatives. Also looking at the younger generation, how, you know, I think from our point of view, it really starts at the young generation. How do you just get that to bring on? And so we're doing a lot of work with universities and schools and outside of those. So we've got quite a few initiatives, and, you know, for us, it's all about accountability. You know, I think there's a lot of firms that perhaps sort of talk about D&I, but we all hold each other accountable too. So, you know, we meet leadership all the way through every week or so to really talk through and monitor how we're progressing.
Yeah, that's great to know. I think we were talking about this actually before, but a lot of companies do say that they are diverse and they have a fancy strapline on the website, but actually when it comes down to it, companies are now having to move from what I call say to do. So Sid on the end there.
Hi, Emma.
Oh, you're loud.
A bit too loud. All right.
So you are the co-founder of Love That Design and also the owner of Total Office, so
Yes.
2 businesses, born and raised in Dubai. How would you say your companies embrace D&I?
So I think it's not too far off from Tim's conversation with regards to just an innate ability to really want that diversity. So I don't know whether we've gone out of our way to have a strategy, so to speak, but I think, you know, we try to look at recruitment from a merit perspective, and I'd like to believe that we're really down the middle currently in both businesses. With regards to leadership as well, we've got women in leadership positions in both companies. However, you know, we're a small company, so we've got about 40, 50 people in one business and about 25 people in another business. So it doesn't come up in a conversation, but I'd like to believe that, you know, from a cultural standpoint or the work culture that's actually in the business, you know, we're open to listening to ideas across the board. And it's not so much even about diversity and inclusiveness, but about your work culture, about, you know, making your hierarchy as flat as possible. So that you're actually taking in input from pretty much everybody. And I think when that hierarchy tends to flatten out, you're open to listening to ideas regardless of race, diversity, inclusiveness, etc. So I'd like to believe that it happens more naturally than a set strategy, but seems to be working.
Great. So we know that if a team is diverse, that it contributes to higher productivity, innovation, and actually it makes for great design. I think particularly in this region when you've got a tapestry of different races, ethnicity, culture, religion. Mariska and Tala, my two architects of the group, would you say that creating a diverse team does lead to great design output? Mariska?
I would say so, yes. Hi, everyone. So basically my experience would be a very strong yes. Diversity is not only gender, it's also the age gap and culture. I mean, we all come from different backgrounds, and especially in Dubai, I think we see a lot of different backgrounds. Myself, I work for a company. I mean, we have up to 25 nations in the company. So put that in perspective, there's only 200 countries, so it's quite diverse already. We are a very young company, so we have more young people, but I think you also learn from the older generation a lot, and you can basically embrace that, and it's a gift that you can learn from the older people as well. So I think it's a very strong yes from my side. So
definitely it's a yes too. Having different people who are coming with diverse views, culture, all of that adds to the mix for a creative design at the end of the day. All of these people come with back knowledge that can influence and add more, definitely, for the output that you would see at the end.
Thank you. So we've spoken about companies not just having a tick in the box when it comes to diversity, which is my biggest bugbear, is just companies that say we're diverse, and then you scratch the surface and it's got only a couple of women out of a huge team. So Tim, how do you ensure at Gensler that you do walk the talk? What metrics do you put in place to ensure you get diversity and inclusion?
I think, as I was saying before, it's not necessarily a purposeful thing, and I think what we've got to be careful of in the future is we don't try and meet metrics to meet DE&I. From our side, it's all about the talent, it's all about the people, and every person's different. It doesn't matter whether race, culture, or anything else. Everyone has a different thought process. So again, we look at it very holistically. We look at it, again, globally through to locality, and with 49 offices around the world, we have a very diverse background between us. And from our side, in terms of the real metrics, it's for us, it's really sort of looking at the client base we're working with, the partners we're working with. And I think it's more about the bigger picture of the industry getting involved. And we've been really sort of driving those programs to get the rest of the industry involved. We talk to our clients regularly to understand what they're doing, and put out statements. And certain companies or clients will partner with because they are actually having a same cultural ethos as we are on a D&I basis. So, we are, Gensler's a very metrics-driven company. We've got all the facts and figures, but again, our leadership, and again through our junior team too, it goes all the way through. It really is just part of the DNA of who we are.
That's amazing. And I think that, with the new generations coming up, they're actually saying we want to work for a diverse employer. I think there's a stat, it's like 85% of talent now want to see that a company has a diversity. And similarly with clients, I know that clients are now requesting, have you got a diverse team? Is there a fair mix of men and women? So Mariska, have you had a client maybe that said, are you diverse?
yes, my current client actually is very strong in that, and to be saying she's also female, so she is looking into that very much. So yeah, and I think it makes a difference because they're just the innovation. There's different opinions, obviously. So as diverse it gets, as better I think is the outcome in the end of the day. Yeah.
What's your experience, Sid? We were talking earlier about RFPs now, mentioning something.
Oh no, I mean I think we've clearly now gotten some news with the in-country value requiring amortization. So that diversity is being pushed into the private sector. And you know, whether we're talking about that or we're talking about inclusion, I think at the end of the day, people want to work with companies they resonate with, right? And if you've got a diverse group, a phenomenal culture, your reputation as a company precedes you. And I think that's really important because you then get called for an RFP, and it's not so much a box ticking scenario. This is just who you are as an organization. And as Mariska said, you know, if companies go out there and say, hey, I want you as a company on board because I've heard a lot about how you treat people or just how you are with the general industry, I think it says a lot about you.
Tala, have you experienced a client that's requested to see anything to do with diversity?
Yes, definitely. Competitions now coming, let's say, from Saudi, they do require a very interdisciplinary kind of team, having different people from different backgrounds, or even poets. Sometimes they would ask for a project. It is very diverse, and it's not only in Saudi. Saudi comes in with a requirement to have kind of giving back to the community and adding to the value of the kingdom. But the same thing also is happening here. We see it on RFPs coming from Dubai or even from Abu Dhabi. So it's a challenge for us to actually collate depending on how big your team is. But it's always very exciting and interesting to actually try to pull together and bring a diverse group that can deliver the quality that the client aims for. And it adds definitely when you witness workshops with different people. We usually in our workshops, we have like 20 people from different companies, one in China, one in Hong Kong, different places. And actually, recently we were working with someone who is in South America. So also these guys, they come in with crazy ideas that are very different to what we need here. And it's very exhilarating for people because they feed off this creativity and this discussion that happens between different people from different backgrounds. So definitely, yes.
Amazing, thank you. Tim, so you have a diverse, multicultural team. Would you say that it can be difficult to manage a team which has so many different ethnicities and cultures that you need to be sensitive with?
Simply, I would say no. I think because we are such a diverse company, people want to come and work with that team, and they know what to expect. And you know, by having so many different nationalities, you know, having all these different points of view actually makes a really interesting viewpoint. And you know, our sort of management style in Gensler is very inclusive, and that's, you know, again, from the top down, everyone is welcome to talk and put their views up. And, you know, we found we got some, you know, we're doing this wellness week this week, as we were saying before, and we've got all the team in the office today. Again, 15, 16 different nationalities, genders, and everyone's just getting on. It's not hard to manage. There's no real pressure points, because I think, again, once you walk through that sort of Gensler culture, that Gensler door, you're sort of expected to work as a collaborative process. And I think with our industry particularly, we are, you know, all very collaborative by nature, and you know, we have a very flat hierarchy. So no, I think it's actually easier, I believe, because people will feel more open to offer their points of view. I think they're learning from their peers, they're learning from their colleagues. And actually it's, you know, from almost from a sales point of view, people are going out there and talking about this naturally without sort of a real push to do so. It's just naturally ingrained in what we do.
Amazing. So I'm going to be a little bit controversial, but has anyone faced sort of either sexism or bias? I mean, I always tell the story about my younger career being thrown out of a big PLC in London for being just a girl, and what do I know about the property industry? Left stood in the rain, crying my eyes out, scarred me for life. But you know, one of the reasons I actually created Wild was to ensure that women never encounter that kind of bias or sexism. And I think that it still is a thing, you know. I think that biases and racism and sexism, I think we definitely have a long way to go. Anybody want to share a story where, you know, you don't have to give names, but where you've encountered something like that. Mariska?
Yeah, I would share. I mean, if people know about me, I'm an architect and I work in construction. So I encounter it almost every day, and it just doesn't stop at the catcalling, or things like that. I have so many stories actually to say, but it's obviously also a very sensible subject. And I think me as a person, I'm very outspoken, I'm very loud, so I make almost like a joke out of it, to not embarrass the other person, but to show like, hey, what you did is just wrong. But yeah, recently I started a new project and new construction site, and the first meeting I went, I needed to go to the washroom, and there was none for female. And for me, it was a shocker because eventually we're in the 21st century, and it's not only about the gender diversity, it's basic human rights, so
Yep.
where do you draw that line as well? And obviously I wasn't shy about it, and I was very outspoken about it, and it traveled quite high up to the management. And the next day, basically when I came back, I had my own toilet. That's just one of the stories, but yeah, I mean, there's plenty.
Anyone else got a story where they've faced bias, racism, sexism?
Yeah, we've had a couple of our team members that we were working on a new project, regionally, shall we say, and they're very, very talented people from not from this part of the world, and they walked into this amazing presentation, nailed the presentation completely, and we got a message afterwards from our client saying, I don't want to see them again on this project because of where they're from. And we're like, well, no, I'm sorry, this is the best team for the project. And
Wow.
we actually all went and met the client. Now they're actually very good partners and friends of ours, and they were very grateful for us for sort of pointing it out because, it's having those bias in what we do, it's all about the talent. And again, it doesn't matter where you're from. It's if you're great at what you do and you can give the best to the client, that's what we're about. So yeah, we've certainly faced that. And, I like to think we're fairly good at standing up. And I think that's, something all of us have to take more initiative on is how do you push back and
Yep.
in the right way.
Would you turn a client down if they were not fair? And
Yeah, I absolutely would. I think,
Yeah.
again, it's going back to that sort of all-inclusive nature. If the client's not acting the way as we would want them to be, and, we have the challenges from a commercial point of view, but for sure, if they're going against our team or not working with our team correctly, absolutely. Yeah.
great, okay. Anyone else?
Well, I don't know about racism, but I got into this industry really relatively young anyway. So I think I got called out on experience very early. I've done a presentation now probably about 16 years ago. And when I was finished with the presentation, I was talking about the warranty of a product at the end of the presentation, which happened to be 10 years. And the person out receiving the presentation just looked at me in the middle of everything and said, well, we'd like to see you last past the 10-year warranty. Listen, these things get said all the time. I was young. I didn't take it to heart. But, I mean, today, 15 years later, you can't get away saying stuff like that. But you could back then, So you learn from it. I realized I obviously looked a little bit younger than I possibly was. I don't know. So I think from that perspective, there's all sorts of things that happen. This is probably the least of it all. I know a lot of people probably go through worse. And I think how you push through it, yes, of course, organizations such as yourself is bringing awareness to this, and it's great. But I think it's up to the individual also to find that courage inside to say, listen, this is just one person, or this is just a few people, and you've got to go do it for yourself regardless.
Great, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So on to gender diversity. And when I created Wild, I had quite a lot of pushback. People were saying, what's this women's group and whatever else. And I actually created it to counteract the boys' clubs, because the problem with male-dominated sectors, let's take construction as an example, is that there are what we call informal networks where much business is done on the golf course and in the pub. And I think that, with this industry in particular, there still is a lot of, the boys' club informal networks. So What do you feel stops women making it to the top? And I have my own version of what I think stops women making it to the top, which I'll share. But Tala, what would you say stops women from climbing the ranks when it comes to a leadership role?
We can always blame it on the men, but I think it's not always the answer. It's not always blame it on the other people. It's easier. Sometimes women themselves are the person who is standing in the middle of their career going up. So I think as women, we need to teach them or educate them. I think the issue was when I went to school, I didn't see much examples of women in leadership roles. So I never thought that I can reach to that. I always thought that it's a male-dominated thing. They have to stay there, and you'll always be a junior or someone who's under someone. But when you go into the industry itself, there are so many ways for women to excel, and there are so many PowerPoints for women that they can use these to their advantage. So I think basically women have to educate themselves, empower themselves, and actually network like yours would support them and show little girls that this is a possibility, this is something that you can do, and break any ceiling you see. Anyway, now, not gender, not wearing hijab, none of these things are obstacles anymore. You can do whatever you like if you believe in it and you have the passion for it and you want to fight for it. So this is the fierce, I think, energy that has to come out for women to go through.
Yeah, I think you said a couple of really important points. The reason why women don't make it in leadership often is because there is a lack of female role models. You take construction as an example, it has a couple of women sporadically here and there, but little role models or mentorship from women in those positions. And also, I genuinely believe that women do hold themselves back, and it's not all about a blame culture. We do hold ourselves back with imposter syndrome and lack of confidence. What do you think, Mariska, really holds women back from making leadership?
I think I can second both of you, basically. I think sometimes we're just so afraid, to be bold and be out there. Yes, we don't have a lot of encouragement as in female leaders, but then I think scrap that all, because I work for a man, basically, who runs the company. And whenever I have a problem, he just has my back and he supports me, and my voice is actually heard. And I think what we covered earlier, it becomes down to the individual again. And once you raise that voice, and once you be bold, and once you are outspoken, I think anything is possible,
I think there is a problem with the double bind, because a lot of women, if they're called bossy at a young age, it actually means that they don't put their hand up for those leadership because it has a negative connotation. Having been called aggressive and bossy a lot of my career, I think that really can be an issue and can really, really hold women back. But also, I think that men play a vital role in gender equality, and it's so important that men are role models and advocates for change, because it's actually men that can really, really make the difference for women. And there is an initiative by the UN called the He for She, which is about bringing men to the cause. And like you quite rightly said, it's a human rights issue. It's not men are better than women or vice versa. It's just that we actually possess different skill sets. And when you bring them together, it makes for amazing leadership. So, Sid, I know we were talking before about your only surrounded by women with your family and whatever else. So what's your views on gender inequality and supporting women as an advocate for change?
So we're a second generation business in one of the businesses, and my father was quite a personality, but he was only able to do that because my mother was the support she was. he wouldn't be the same person without her. I've got an absolute powerhouse of a sibling sister, and I'm,
There she is.
there she is, yeah. A wife that's in nonprofit, also very outspoken, and my two girls are following in suit. So listen, as I said, I'm surrounded by women, and just making sure that they have the voice that allows them to grow in an impartial environment is really important. And just making sure that you understand that side of it is critical. But this is how I see it. So for me, it doesn't seem like anything unnatural to not support it. So it's probably a little bit more challenging for me to sit here to tell you how I support it, because for me, I've not known anything else.
Great answer, thank you. And Tim, what do you think? How can we create more awareness and bring men to the cause so that they can be strong advocates for women?
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the inclusion, I think it's having that support and that allowing people to feel they can raise these questions or issues. And, kind of like I said, it's something that, to be honest, I've never really focused too much on, because it's always been part of the way I was brought up and my sisters and my family as well. And, I think from the guys and that would really just have to get together and have these conversations like this, get this exposure out there, have the open and the frankness. And I think we've had this great chance over the last 18 months since the pandemic to reset a lot of things. And I think this is a great moment in time that we can, address this in a lot more detail, having a lot more open forums and frankness in conversations. And
Yeah.
Going back really again to education, early levels, it's something that I don't think you can necessarily teach. It's something that you have to ingrain in someone as someone grows through their life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an educative process, and I'm always shocked whenever I do a talk on diversity or gender balance. Often I'll start with, what is gender equality? What is diversity? And probably 10% of people actually really know. And I think that educating at the grassroots level is fundamental for change. So there are lots of benefits to gender equality and diversity. One of the main things is higher returns, higher corporate returns. So have you experienced that in the business that you've worked for? If you've created a diverse team, or Tim, has Gensler got metrics in place that show, we've got equality and a diverse team, but actually it's led to higher profits in the business?
We do, and I think it has ultimately, but I think what it's done for us is opened our eyes up to different types of project that we're looking at as well. From particularly in the US with the social housing and everything that's happened over there the last 18 months. Yes, it does increase profits and revenue, but that's, to be honest, again, not been the focus of doing it. The reason we're doing it is for good business, for the good of human, and our sort of tagline is creating the future of cities. And what we've really found is it's just opened up this whole plethora of companies and organizations that want to come and talk to us, that want to partner with us. And from voluntary work to non-profit work, it's yes, great revenue drives a lot of things, but as a firm, I think the work we're doing now, the sort of free work is become more of a focus than it used to be. And it used to be the tick box: have we done a pro bono job this year? But now it's like, okay, how can we actively get into that community and drive it and give that back to the community? Again, bringing that back to the early part of the life cycle when you have people coming in. How does that change their lives moving forward?
Do any of the companies you work for measure diversity and inclusion? I mean, I think to get effective results, the KPI actually needs to be run alongside other KPIs, and actually D&I isn't just a HR concern, it should be from the top down. So Sid, does any of your businesses measure D&I, or is it something you sort of just do naturally?
No, we don't. Not categorically, and definitely not like Gensler does. But I think this is a bit difficult to answer only because I think you tend to balance out the energy in a space. And there's a female energy and a male energy, and at the end of the day, and maybe this is too metaphysical a conversation, but at the end of the day, it needs to balance out, and it just naturally moves in that direction. And I think the minute you have an imbalance is where even the culture starts to take a bit of a beating. So while we don't go out of our way to measure something, I definitely do feel like you need to have the pulse of the organization, and diversity definitely helps in that space.
Great. Tala, LWK, do you have any KPIs or metrics to measure D&I?
To be honest, since the company is based in Hong Kong, so basically to them, it's not something that they think it's important or they overthink about it. But recently, actually, I mailed them. I'm like, can you guys give me numbers? Can I know how many people we have, male versus females? And the numbers are not bad, actually. We're around 30. I'm not going to say we're 50 like Gensler, but I think we're on the way. And they're understanding that, yes, it opened their eyes that there are values that female brings to the team. And same thing comparing to the numbers that we have in Dubai office, since we're still a young team, almost 4 years now. Again, same percentage is 30%. So on the adding value or returns, I don't have actual numbers compared to projects, but I would give an example of 2 interns who we hired who were females. Both of them did exceptionally well, that we hired them full time, and they're now part of the team, adding to the inclusion numbers that we have. So we're happy about that, definitely.
Amazing, that's nice to hear. So Tim, Gensler at the forefront of D&I, how do you measure it? Where do the KPIs sit?
Again, it goes back to so we have now a global head of D&I, as I was saying earlier, and these sort of 5 strategies are our real benchmarks of the different sort of pillars, if you like, of D&I. And that it goes through education, goes through internal pieces, external business, so that's how we measure them. Then each of those have sub-initiatives, so we'll have a task group that go and look at is compensation fair throughout the distribution of people and in our different offices. Is there a gender pay gap? Is that closed? So we have all of these, again, different pillars that go through first locally, and we sort of act those. That gets reported regionally, then back up to a whole global group of DE&I. So we have, as a global leadership, I think there's 10 on our DE&I panel, including Di Thorson, who's one of our sort of key leaders in that. So that's kind of how we really measure it. And then that's, again, going back to the accountability. We're challenged and pushed in the right way to make sure we're following up and things are happening. We've got some great initiatives coming up in Dubai over the next year, again, associated with universities.
Do you think it gives Gensler a competitive advantage to be a diverse business?
I think it certainly helps in terms of competition, but it goes again to it's the shift as a general culture as a species. So yes, it helps when we can go and have these great stories, but again, it's not just being done because it's for being done sake. It's being done for purpose and designed for purpose is, again, another one of our sort of tagline. So yeah, it certainly helps, but we're bringing as much as we can everyone along on this journey with us. We like to be the pioneers of things. Again, it's what we like to do. And if by doing what we do brings 4 or 5 of our great partners and consultants with us, then it's a change for the good.
Okay, brilliant. So I'm going to go on to some more personal questions. Lighten it up a bit. So what would you say, Mariska, has been a big breakthrough for you in your career?
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, not sure if I can answer that correctly or rightly, or I don't know. I just think if you're true to yourself and if you're just not shy about things, I think that's the main thing for everybody. I personally experienced that.
I would say working on the Museum of the Future is quite a big career breakthrough.
Yes, I mean, that's just like on the CV, tick. But obviously you get exposed to so many people, different cultures, so you learn a lot as well. You learn, it's almost like dancing. You learn how to dance with it. You learn how to, actually someone told me, and it's quite a nice association, We're all like a box of crayons, you know, like one is yellow, one is blue, one is green. They're all different, but all together they make a really nice picture. So I think that's a very good comparison. So, yeah.
Good analogy, thank you. Sid, your biggest career breakthrough?
Oh, I think more than a career breakthrough, I think it's been using a tool. So we use a tool called Strength Finder, which allows us to highlight each one's individual strengths and then what it looks like in a team. And when we've started using this, I think you start to identify, you know, where you are spinning your wheels, so to speak, and where you're actually getting traction. And I think that's been a huge shift in our businesses, really, honestly, because once we started doing that, then you started pairing people together in teams that actually made sense, as opposed to, you know, throwing a warm body in a department. So I think for us, that tool has really changed how we do things, and also allowed me to sort of shift out of my existing role into a new role that actually just played to my strengths, as opposed to me trying to fit a position that's on a business card.
Great, okay, thank you. Tala?
Breakthrough for me, shifting the career, basically. I did graduate from interior design. I went into interior design. I found the field completely biased, completely not what I want. I hated it so much. And all the passion that I had in school dragged me somewhere that's not where I want to be. So shifting, staying kind of in the field, but we're going into marketing and communication is the breakthrough for me. It was a very difficult decision. I didn't know that it's possible. I did not, I hold myself very accountable for, I have to excel where I decided to be. For me to shift, and I actually found myself when I did that. I'm very passionate about what I do, and it led me from one organization to another, and here I am today. So I think that would be the moment for me.
So you opted not to go into interior design because it was full of bias.
Yes, I did have some situation where it wasn't a healthy environment. It was kind of toxic. So at that moment, I made a decision that, and maybe I didn't meet the right mentors across the way. And this is one of the things that I try whenever, because I participate a lot with going back to university, doing career fairs, and talking to students, and explaining to them that, yes, what you learn in university is very ideal, maybe in terms of situations, but when you go outside and you experience the real world, it's completely different. So trying to find the right organization for you, and also advocating other staff and employee to have the ability to mentor people or give back to people is something very beneficial for the industry in all. So you don't want to have a young student coming to you and traumatized for life and not being able to excel other than the skills that they already have. So I think, yeah.
Great. That's great. Tim?
I'm not sure it's necessarily one thing. I think it's anything that kind of pushes me outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
You know, anything that gives you that challenge. I think, you know, we're always learning. And I guess one specific example was I was working in London. I was asked to go and run this company in Singapore. Never been to Asia. Said yes, packed all my stuff at my house, took my wife. First time in Asia was moving over there. So that was quite a big change. And I think from that, you know, from moving there, you're just so much about, again, different cultures, different interactions. It's really out of your norm and out of your comfort, which I really enjoy. I think that always, and it pushes all of us. You do things that you don't necessarily expect you can do.
Has anyone had a rock bottom moment that they've overcome, and what did you learn?
This is a deep question.
Not that anyone wants to share. Okay. So the last question, which I'll ask all of you, is what single piece of advice would you give to your younger self or to our audience, Sid?
I think it's probably just repeating exactly what I said before. I think I spent a good part of 10 years trying to fit a certain mold. Again, and that's probably because of a family business and succession, and you're sort of plugged into that spot. Someone actually likened it to golden handcuffs. So you got the spot, but you really can't do too much with it because you're shackled. So I think just being able to, you speak about being true to yourself, and I think it's tough in a family business to find out what yourself really is. And I think that's where tools like Strength Finder, et cetera, sort of pull that out of you, and when you read it and it sort of reads you like a book, you go, hang on, what am I now doing that's in this space of strength? And if I'm just constantly spinning my wheels with my weaknesses, then I'm going nowhere as a person. So I think if at all anything, you'll have a lot of cultural bias, you'll have a lot of social bias, but as long as you understand who you are, you can only grow from that point on. But if you don't pay attention to who you are and are constantly pandering to society, it's getting you nowhere. So that's my advice to my younger self.
Yeah, I think with the social media takeover and the whole comparison thing, it makes people not be who they really are, coupled with the fact that I think there's a real problem with younger generations looking at Kylie Jenner's perfect body on a yacht, drinking champagne, wanting to have that ideal life. And I think it really is becoming a bit of an issue, isn't it? People not able to be who they really are. Mariska?
Two things. I think cheer more often for yourself, because I think sometimes it's so important that you just take a step back and say, hey, I have accomplished something and I'm so proud of it, and clap more often for yourself, even if it's like a baby step. And voice it and be bold, because I think that's so important, and especially being female and experiencing all of it, I think that's very important. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Tala?
And advice? I'm not that old, so I don't know.
You don't have to be old to give advice.
I don't know what advice I would give myself, but I think having the tenacity and the perseverance is key for you.
Yeah.
Whenever anything is thrown at your way that you don't like, just keep going, because you know that you know where you are and you know where you want to go. So just have a target and go for it.
Yeah, tenacity, faith, and self-belief, I think, are the key things to life. Tim?
I think from my side, it's treating everyone the same, no matter who they are, and I think there's some great life lessons, especially in our industry. You can be meeting a junior designer up to the shake in the same day, and I think it's great to.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to be treated that same way. So I think that'd be my advice, and to listen. Everyone's got a really valuable point of view, and to make sure you hear all of those views before you make any decisions or calls.
Brilliant. Well, thank you all so much for your contributions, and thank you everybody for joining us.